We have to figure out ways to use technology to help us solve problems, to improve governance, democracy, education, agriculture, to create jobs, enhance well-being, healthcare, to make our cities safer and cleaner. His Majesty the King. Kuzuzombola. Welcome to the 39th session of Bhutan Dialogues. Our theme today is Bhutan, preparing for a technology-driven future. Technology is a crucial aspect of our daily lives. It is almost impossible to imagine our lives without technology. During COVID, Bhutan has gained some advantages from technology. For example, we have been able to digitize school classes. Many of us have moved to virtual office meetings, and many office goers have been able to work from home. So many events have gone virtual. Many Bhutanese have taken to online shopping platforms. Bhutan has also been able to develop the COVID drug trace in a matter of weeks to monitor the on-the-ground situation. The actions needed to deliver these successfully underline the importance of digital technologies in this society. But technology is not all rosy. Personal privacy in a digital world is a challenge. Some people are feeling more disconnected and isolated, especially some of the youth. There is an increasing tendency for people to socialize and communicate via digital devices rather than through real-world contact. Our speaker for today is Dr. Cigay Dorji. Dr. Cigay has been heading the operation and management of Thimphu TechPark. He's been a key driver of the IT park, a vibrant place creating work opportunities for as many as 500 people. Recently, he served on the 21st Century Economic Task Force, where he specialized on strategy regarding technology. He also co-authored a biographical book titled Dasho Nishioka, a Japanese who lived for Bhutan. Dr. Cigay has a Ph.D. in computer engineering from the University of Tokushima, Japan. Our host, Dr. Karma, is a thought leader, social worker, and president of Loden Foundation. My closing. On behalf of the Bhutan Dialogues team, I would like to thank the Thimphu TechPark for hosting us today. I suggest those joining us today to ask questions, but keep them short and to the point. For our online viewers, please drop your questions in the chat box. Ugan and Tshering will be compiling the questions and will read them out, and the speaker will be able to respond. Please allow me to end with a quote from the UN Secretary General. Digital technologies sustain life, work, health and learning for billions of people. In the face of COVID, businesses, governments and the digital community have proven resilient and innovative. These challenging times have accelerated the transformation everywhere. Tashi Delane, thank you.
So, Kuzuzampo, Dr. Cigay, it's a pleasure to have you with us here for the 39th session of Bhutan Dialogues. And you have been taking part in one of the add-on sessions, so you are pretty well aware of what Bhutan Dialogues is for. We are trying to create a forum where we can carry out civil conversations on our past, on how we have come about, on our present, the challenges, the opportunities that we have right now, and the future. Yes. And 2 days ago, I remember reading a piece by you in the national newspaper about how society, humanity on the whole, is on a progressive sort of scale, that we have come from industry 1, 2, 3, and now we are at the industry 4.0 era. And I mean, this is quite clear when you look at the gadgets around us. We can see how the digital world has now taken over in a way, how our life has been heavily influenced by this. So it's really wonderful to have a digital and IT expert, be with us to talk about the future of digital revolution here in Bhutan. But before we get into the details of the digital technology and its uses and implications, I would like to know how you came to be who you are right now, a digital and IT expert leading TTPL with some 500 plus employees.
Thank you, Dr. Karma, having me on this very respected, well-known Bhutan Dialogues platform. And I'm also thankful to all the young people that have joined us here today. So to start with the first question, so maybe I can give you a brief background about myself. So in Bhutan, I feel that except for few people, most of the people of our generation and before that, we came from the villages. So I came from a very humble family. I grew up in a very small village called Barsam in Trashigang. So the life, growing up in the village has not been really easy. And in terms of my interest to study further and my love for knowledge, I think came from I feel it came from my two elder brothers. My two elder brothers didn't get the opportunity to go to school because those days the young people were more important at home to help on the farm. So they were very interested in learning, and so they learned on their own, or they learned from other friends who knew how to read and write, and they would often bring books and they would talk about the learned people. They would talk about their friends who were studying in the school, and they would talk about somebody who has reached, for example, class 10. Those days, being in class 10 used to be
highly educated.
Yeah, he's highly educated. So they would say, oh, this guy from this village, from Barsam, is in class 10. And then they used to talk about one guy who had finished graduation. And he had become, I think at that time, maybe he became a medical doctor. And they said, oh, he was being offered 1,000 ultram as salary. And then, that was a very big amount those days. But, what I mean to say is that that kind of love for learning and curiosity came from the conversation that I had with my two elder brothers. And one of my eldest brother, he learned from, other village lamas and all that. So I'm supposed to be somewhat good in Dzongkha, but although he didn't go to school, his Dzongkha is much better than mine, and he taught me as well. And later on, he became a village, representative and also served as a GAP. But my second elder brother, when he was herding the cows, he really wanted to be in the school and learn. So he ran away, and then he joined Semtoka Division School. At that time, if you knew how to read and write and you had some knowledge, you could join directly into class 5 or 6. So now he has become a traditional physician in Namkadunso. So I think that love for learning all were instilled by them. And then later on, actually in my family, I was the first one to go to a formal school. And then my younger siblings also went, but I was the first one. And my love for learning and the advice that I got that unless you work hard and study, you will not be able to better your lot. That was always in my mind. I think I worked hard and did well in my studies. And then after I finished my education, after class 12, I got a scholarship to study in Australia, finished my engineering, and then I came back and worked in Bhutan Telecom. Then from Bhutan Telecom, I went for my studies to Japan. And after I came back from Japan, as in most of the government organizations, you have been away and you did your master's and Ph.D, but you come back and you are given the same work. So then I thought I wanted a change. That is when I applied for the job in the tech park, and I have been here since then, from 2012. That is how I came to be here.
So beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. This aligns so well with what you were also writing in that piece in the national newspaper about how we have come very far as a humanity from hunter-gatherer times all the way to the digital era. And in case of Bhutan, the kind of background you come from, and now you are here leading a major state company. what is your role here? Can you tell us a little bit about TTPL, the Thimphu TechPark?
TechPark project was started with a lot of expectations and a lot of big vision. So I joined here because I also believed in that vision. In fact, when I reflect on my thinking from the past, I joined Bhutan Telecom in year 2000. I came back from Australia in 1999, and then around 2004, I wanted to go for my master's. So that time, it was not so common for many people to go for master's, and there weren't so many scholarships. So there used to be a scholarship from Japan government. Every year, around 2 students used to go, and in my first attempt, I did not get through. I think there were 2 students got through, two people, and then I probably came, I don't know, 3rd or 4th. I applied for the same scholarship in the next year, and then I got through. So I went to study IT in Japan then in 2005. So in that interview, the connection to the question is that even in my first attempt, when they asked me why I want to study IT, why do you need to study masters in IT and all that, I told them, even before I think this used to be discussed in a big way, I said that Bhutan being a landlocked country, the real opportunity lies in IT. And unless we really, the IT, I think, has the opportunity to take Bhutan to the next level, because we are far away, and if you go into manufacturing, the transportation is an issue, and lot of challenges are there, rugged terrain and all that. So I gave that answer. I think it didn't convince the people so much. So that belief had always been there. So when the opportunity came up in 2012 to join this tech park, I took up. And frankly speaking, when I tried for this job at the tech park, there wasn't much competition. I had been away most of the time. I think many people who knew about this project thought that this project will fail, so they didn't want to try. So, and indeed, it was really hard in the beginning, but I really believed that something can be done out of this. So I was looking for a change, and also I believed in the vision. That is how I ended up to be here. And my role here has been to really drive this center, to make something out of this tech park.
How many companies are based here right now, and how many employees?
So initially it was really difficult, and then in the middle we got a much larger number of companies. But again, now with COVID and also with the government policy changing, initially if 100% foreign-owned companies come to Bhutan, they had to be located here. But now the government policy has changed. Even if you are 100% foreign-owned company, you can be anywhere you like. You don't have to be at the tech park. And because of this policy change, some of the companies who came to the tech park, they have moved out of the tech park. But still, I think actively operating from here, right now we have, I'm not sure, maybe around 4 or 5 foreign companies, and a total number of people working at the tech park, maybe about 500 or 600 even now.
I remember when the tech park was first launched during the first government's time, and people were highly critical, as you mentioned earlier. And I think it is largely due to you and your persistence, I believe, that the tech park has become a success story. So a lot of appreciation for that, and I'm pretty sure the audience here will also agree with that. But when we talk about IT park and the digital IT sector here in Bhutan as a whole, one of the things that you have tried to address, and many other agencies have tried to address, is also youth unemployment. The hope is that the digital technology will help employ the unemployed youth. But then when you study the situation carefully, of course there are opportunities, as you said, and there is certainly the strong need for it. But then when you look at the supply side and the demand side as it is, on the supply side, to be meaningfully and properly employed in the IT sector, you really need a very good knowledge of mathematics and the basics required for programming or coding or whatever it is. And I'm not familiar with that subject. I had a friend who visited Bhutan with the hope of starting his software company here. And he visited few schools and discovered that the class 12 maths was too poor for his kind of work. What is your take when you try to create employment in a place like the IT park? Is the educational sort of qualification or skills coming from the schools hindering that? Do we have enough people coming out of schools with the right capacity?
There are different kinds of companies, and there are companies like the one you mentioned who need highly skilled developers, programmers. And here at the tech park, for instance, most of the bigger employers are the companies who need people at a little lower skill level. So for that kind of work, we have much bigger number of people, much
like,
bigger pool.
Like Scan Cafe.
Yes, Scan Cafe and iMerit Technologies. So there is a much bigger pool of people to choose from. But when it comes to, well, we also have this company called Celis from Switzerland. It's a software company now. I think they have maybe 70 or 80 people. So they are looking for the kind of people that you are describing. So you are right. So right now, to get good programmers in Bhutan, I think it's difficult. And now, really talking about the level of skills of young Bhutanese in mathematics. So there, I feel that there could be many factors. I think there is this PISA-D comparison that compares the performance of school students in various countries. So probably I'm not very sure where Bhutanese students where Bhutanese students stand in that score. But my thinking is that on the whole, probably the IQ level of the Bhutanese versus maybe the IQ level of some other nationalities may not be very different. And the difference in the mathematics skills of Bhutanese, if they are lower, it may be because of the education system or the teaching learning methodology or the kind of facilities we have in the school. So I feel it could be the difference because of that. When it comes to the actual IQ level, probably it may be very similar to what it is in other countries. That is my belief.
But then our neighbors, especially, they have the critical mass to produce the large number of sort of highly skilled IT experts, whereas we probably don't have that critical mass, even population is such a small one. What can be done, actually, if we were to rise beyond what the neighbors or other countries around here have? For instance, one of the things that I wondered, especially talking about education, is if we could have dedicated schools, especially at higher secondary level, for art, for music, and for STEM subjects and so forth. So do you think some intervention of that sort, any ideas you have of how we can actually bring up that skill even higher than what is around in our region?
I think that's a very good idea. And I have read in the newspapers, I don't know myself, not been to such a school, but in other countries, I think they do have such schools dedicated to maybe science, technology, and mathematics, engineering, STEM subjects, or even schools that is especially dedicated to very intelligent students so that they get better grooming. So I feel that we should explore this. And on the whole, we need to really improve the education system. And His Majesty has given us the reminder I feel at the right time. So we need to improve the education system. And also, I feel that this is really the right time to think about the future of Bhutan. And here, if I may add, I feel that now, going forward, Bhutan has come a long way. And till now, I feel Bhutan has been focusing on building the foundation. Now the foundation has been built. Now we should be clear about what we want to achieve here on. And that clarity is, I think, is being provided by His Majesty in his royal addresses. and talking about the future of Bhutan. So I feel it's now really up to us to really capture that, understand what His Majesty means, and then design policies that gives us the clarity for how we move forward. Look at, for instance, how Singapore did it, and for instance, how Japan did it, how Korea did it. If we go about doing things in the same way as we have been doing in the past, whether it is within the bureaucracy or whether it is in the corporation, for example, taking 1 year or 2 years just to repair a stretch of road in Thimphu, or to deliver a software project if we take 5 years, 6 years, whereas in developed countries they take 1 year, then I think things will not change. So we should have that clarity of vision, and I think this generation, the challenge for this generation is really to get to that next level. Our foundation has been built in terms of education, I think in terms of everything. Now next, innovation and the building of the economy. Otherwise, I think maybe many of you young people here, you may also leave Bhutan in the next few years. And our children, they may not be interested to live in Bhutan. So we need to create that environment and the conditions for the younger Bhutanese to thrive and live in Bhutan and take this nation even forward. I feel that that is very important.
Fantastic, wonderful, pertinent one. But I think on the whole, we are not really confused with the vision. I think there is ample vision provided. There are also perhaps policies or directions. But then in terms of delivery and implementation, we seem to always have a problem. And you brought up the economy as well. To go back to my earlier scheme of supply and demand, when you look at the demand side now, we've looked at the supply side for IT expertise. When you look at the demand side, does Bhutan have the capacity to support too much sort of digital and IT industry? I mean, we are facing fierce competition from our big neighbors who are real IT giants. And it's probably because there is no real market or demand that our young people are forced to go and work elsewhere. What is your take? How can we enhance the market for IT?
I think that is where a very vibrant industry is much needed. So the development of the industry is, I think, very important. So bringing in these FDI companies is trying to trigger that, and then we should encourage our own young people to start IT companies. And talking about the demand from the market side, so one of the problems that the Bhutanese entrepreneurs or private sector face is the small market. And one of the ways for us to overcome that is to try and capture the market outside. And that example is exactly being shown by the FDI companies here at the Tech Park. So the FDI companies here at the Tech Park, they are employing right now maybe around 500 Bhutanese. And all these Bhutanese are serving the market outside of Bhutan. So why not our own entrepreneurs start a company and then try to serve the market outside? In that case, the potential for growth is unlimited. I feel that should be the way forward, and I think that is doable. And we don't have to look too far also. Even if you look at Nepal, for instance, I often look at Bangladesh and Nepal because they are in this region. And especially in Nepal, despite the instability in the government, the private sector is doing quite well. And they have some very good IT companies also. And these IT companies not only serve the Nepalese market, but they are also serving the market outside. Just to give an example of one IT company that even they are selling the software product here. There is a company called Infodev, and they are trying to develop this software for core banking software for micro banking. And our national CSI bank, the newest bank, I think they are trying to use that software, the software developed by a company in Nepal. So I think we can also do it. We can also do it from Bhutan. And one of the things that our earlier, entrepreneurs have been doing is always trying to look at the government tender. So that also actually kind of creates the misunderstanding and distrust between the government and the private sector, because the government feels that private sector is only waiting for government tender. So I feel that the next generation of entrepreneurs, you can try the government tender, but you also do other things. If you're only waiting for government tender, then the bureaucrats think that, oh, you are just waiting for our tender. So I feel that next generation of entrepreneurs should try and market outside, and I think this is possible now.
And you are putting the burden on the private sector in a way, while you represent a state corporation under DHI. So, the state, with all the resources, both financial and human resources, they tried, chip and repel. Then there was the second government's plan to have, the e-governance master plan. Then we now have a digital Drukgyal flagship program. With all this, the state hasn't really got that far, has it? So how can you expect the private sector suddenly to open up and export things abroad?
So that was general take at the industry and how the industry should develop further. And the government has also realized that, and the DHI companies have realized that as well. And right now, I'm heading this company, TTPL. So earlier, my mandate was mainly trying to bring FDI companies and create employment opportunities. Now, you have exactly touched on the point, on the point that I should be, conveying. Is that now Thimphu TechPark Limited is mandated to become the IT center of excellence and also export IT services. So, as a way to help achieve that, to get started, the government has given us some big projects to work on, but these projects are given just to get us kick started. So after we build capacity using these projects, the next KPI, the performance indicator for Thimphu TechPark Limited, is whether we are able to take these services to the outside market or not. If we are not able to export IT services, if we are not able to take the IT services beyond Bhutanese borders, then I think we may be failing in our mandate. So we also have a very important KPI in that aspect. So we would like the private sector to try that, but we are mandated to show this example to the private sector as well. So we definitely have to do that.
But in being the example, aren't you also depriving the private sector of their opportunity to grow? I mean, there has been a lot of criticism from the private sector saying that DHI companies are taking quite a lot of opportunities, which the private sector could easily take up. You are right now developing the big software for taxation and also for health. So in both these cases, do you think there are private sectors in the country who could have taken up that instead of TTPL?
So these are very huge projects. So none of the companies in Bhutan would have been able to take them up on their own. So normally in these kind of projects, what happens is that in the past, the government would tender it out, and then some companies from outside would partner with the company, private company in Bhutan, and then they would, whoever wins the tender, and they would undertake the work together. And normally what has happened in the past is the work gets done, most of the work is done by the partner from outside. So the domestic partner is more or less of a sleeping partner. So they are not able to transfer much knowledge, know-how into Bhutan. And once the bigger partner leaves, the software maintenance and these kind of things have been a big problem in the past. So the government wanted to do things little differently this time. But having said that, I would also like to clarify that the government has given to TTPL only these two projects. But within Digital Drukgyal, there are also many other programs under Ministry of Education, and also under Ministry of Finance. There is also the development of the system for customs. It is also a big project. So that is being undertaken by a private sector. So at least these two big projects have come to us, but there are other projects which are in which the private sector can take part. But by giving this project to us, the government is trying to actually gain two things with one budget. Basically, so with this same budget, the government is trying to develop the capacity, local capacity. We are mandated to, we are not supposed to try and make profits from this. But with the money, we are supposed to build capacity. And then the next thing is, we should be able to try and sell similar software to outside in the future. So with this mandate, the project has been given to us. So trying to build a capacity and also try and sell outside, plus to maintain the software with the local team in the long run. So putting all these conditions, the project has been given to us. But having said that, there are other projects which goes to the private sector as well, and it is not assured that later on we will get such kind of projects directly from the government. So it is mainly to get us started. So we have tried to explain this to the private sector in Bhutan, and the IT private firms in Bhutan have kind of understood. So we are on the same page, I feel.
So let's talk about some general IT and digital service issues. So for instance, when a government organization or institution provides the services, I've been to RSTA twice, once personally, in person, then second time online because they asked me to do that. And after I paid my fees for renewing a license, the system hung up. So it happened twice. And the queue to again go back and see somebody in person is quite long. Similarly, we have heard of recent customs system being hacked. So who should be, as consumers of these services, as clients of the state services, we wonder who should be held accountable. So when you come up with your tax software or the health data, and health is a very critical information, if somebody hacks, who will be held accountable? What are we going to do in such cases?
And when things like this happens, it is a big setback. Then the users lose confidence. So from the government side and from the agencies concerned, I think we should make sure that these services are available, as much as possible. We cannot say that it will be available 100% all the time, but there are parameters such as availability of 99.99959, so or 49s, 99.99% of the time it should be available. So, but I think in our case maybe it is available only 90% or 95%. By IT standards, that becomes very low, very low.
So, but 90% in our case would be quite high actually. Maybe it's even lower than 60.
So even 99% is very low, because 99%, 1% of 365 days, I don't know, it could mean some days being out, right? So it has to be at least 4 nines or 5 nines, 99.99% or 99.999% availability should be guaranteed. And I feel that firstly, the head of agency should be held accountable. In this case, with due respect, I think if it is the RSTA system, the Director General of the RSTA, I think should be held accountable. When he is held accountable, then he will hold his 80% accountable. So the chain of things will go down, and then everybody will become more responsible. So I think this is very, very important. It's not even a matter of getting hacked. I think firstly the systems are not, maybe firstly it is not built properly, and then secondly, I think nobody is really taking care to maintain it properly or making sure that it is available, just taking things too easy. I think that is really with that kind of 1960s or 1970s mindset, then like I mentioned earlier, we have a big vision. We can never achieve that vision. I think now it is time to pull up our socks. And now the thing about system getting hacked, cybersecurity is of paramount importance. I think one area where our Bhutanese youth should strive to become good at, I think, is cybersecurity. I think the opportunity is there, and I kind of feel that maybe, like you mentioned, maybe our youth, except for few, are not really cut out to be very good software developers, But I feel that maybe there are more youths who may become better cybersecurity experts, maybe white hat hackers or something like that. So they have opportunity. So even the young people here right now in the audience or whoever is watching, if you are thinking of what to specialize in one area, please think about specializing in cybersecurity. I think we need many such experts in the future.
I think it's so critical because almost all our transactions, all our information is being stored as digital data. But going beyond a few cybersecurity IT experts to help us, the public as a whole has to know about this, right? Has to be aware of the problems and the flaws of digital technology as well. So if you were to advise the general public here about what 3 things they can do to avoid being hacked or avoid being their data being misused or stolen, what are the things that they should avoid doing?
I think the first important thing is that you should not believe or trust everything that you read online or you hear online, even from a live person. Even though you may be chatting with another person, please don't believe him or her. Sometimes he or she could be your online friend, right? You don't know in person. Please don't believe. Just the other day, I happened to scroll through some Facebook videos, and there was this story about a young girl in the US, 13 years old, and she had been chatting with another man for about maybe 6 months, it says. And I think it was a big news, it seems, during that time, some years back. And on, I think, Christmas Eve, that man asked him to come and see him, just say hi for a minute, it seems. And between the dinner and the dessert, so she went up, and that time, I think it was during the time, maybe not even having phones. So that guy asked him to come out. Maybe she told him about the location of her house. And then I think she thought that she would just go out and say hi to her online friend. And then, just before dessert, she disappeared. And her family went looking for her everywhere. Fortunately, she was able to escape. I think you can read about that. I saw that video. But such things can happen. You can never trust somebody online, please. Both men and women. And for the men, even more difficult. There are women scammers who would make you come nude and all that, and then scam you to pay up huge amounts of money, I've heard. So first one is that. On top of that, there are other scammers. And recently I was very sad to learn about this online business coaching program. And quite a lot of Bhutanese who are working abroad have joined this. And this is a pyramid scheme. And in this case, even your friends or relatives will tell you, this is a good scheme, please join. Do you know why they will tell you? In pyramid scheme, if you are able to make more people join below you, you get money. So don't believe, even if your friend or very close friend is telling you, don't believe that. It's a pyramid scheme. And pyramid scheme, I think is you can just read up on the internet. This is not a good thing at all. So don't believe and don't fall for this kind of scams. And secondly, you may become the victim of phishing attacks. Phishing. Phishing is very common. Phishing means I think it came from fishing as in normal catching fish, but they would try to dupe you through links that look legitimate, but that will take you to some funny websites where you are asked to put your password and all that. So please don't click on links and don't open the attachments that come to you from unknown sources. Don't accept Facebook friends from beautiful looking girls. But you look at the number of pictures or whatever, and then you can easily make out. And every time I get this kind of Facebook friend request, I see 1 or 2 of my friends as mutual friends. Some Bhutanese men already are their friends, but I normally block them or I delete that. So I think these are important ones. And the last one is please take care of your passwords. Cybersecurity, it can be a big subject, but it can start from as small thing as taking care of your password and then changing it often. Don't give very easy password that your friends can guess. please, and then keep changing. And if you have too many passwords, like me, I think most of us now nowadays we have too many passwords. I suggest using password manager. There are a lot of password managers. The one that I use, I'm still using it is lastpass.com, lastpass.com. I think it's quite good. So if you have too many passwords, you save it there and you remember only one master key.
Wonderful, thank you. So I'm going to recount all four. You mentioned blackmailing, spams, phishing, and then basically protecting your passwords and secret codes. That's very useful for the consumers, the clients of the IT services. But on the same issue, I know that Bhutan Telecom must be responsible for having their list of telephone numbers somehow hacked by foreigners, because we receive calls from some unknown African country and then get charged. So what can the companies do now in terms of cybersecurity to be not hacked, to sort of not lose the confidential, the important data they have?
I think the companies,
both state as well as private companies.
The companies and organizations in general, I think, have a lot to do. And especially in Bhutan, we take it very lightly. Even in the company that I'm working in right now, Thimphu TechPark Limited, we also still take it lightly, just like any other companies in Bhutan. So, firstly, I think the companies should have some IT policies, and many of the companies don't really have proper IT policies. Like how the employees use the office laptops and the office computers, and how they access the server and all that. I think we don't have, even if some companies have them, I think it is not strictly enforced. That is one. Secondly, in other countries, I think you are not allowed to connect your personal laptop to the office network. But here it is very easily allowed. And your office network you take home, you also download and install a lot of things, and then you come back to the office and you connect it. So all this will compromise the overall security within the office. I'm not sure within the FTI companies here they may have some more strict rules, but within the Bhutanese companies it's not strictly enforced. So we take our computers home, we connect to the same network, same server, and then we also bring in all these thumb drives and all these movable devices and connect to the network. All these are, I think, generally not allowed in companies outside or in organizations outside. So these are things that we can enforce. And on top of that, I feel that if the companies try to comply with some of the cybersecurity standards, one of the most basic standards is, I think, ISO 27001 or something like that. So that is one of the basic ones. So within Bhutan, probably the banks are a little bit ahead. They are mandated to comply with some of these standards, but the other organizations at a very low level. And even at the national level, just now DITT has come up with a draft cybersecurity strategy. I think it's not yet adopted at the national level. But other than that, we don't have much right now. So I think all this really needs to be ramped up.
Before we turn to the audience, let me ask you a much broader sort of IT economy related question. So both of us, we have been on the task force team for the 21st century economic roadmap. And in the report that we have submitted from the IT side, digital and technologies, data and technology side, you and Sonam Pelden suggested that Bhutan has to develop infrastructure, both physical, virtual, and also institutional. Earlier you mentioned how Bhutan is landlocked, and so digital technology and digital sector is the promise for us. Yeah. But aren't we also digitally locked in a way? Because we are relying on some gateways that are passing through foreign countries, and it's totally up to them whether they will allow us or not. Or there can be a lot of disruptions, security issues. What do you see would be the future? How can we make Bhutan's digital system more secure and independent?
And, talking about this particular question, so one of the disadvantages we have right now is that our international link the link to the outside world for the internet access right now goes through the Siliguri corridor. So in case something happens to the link at Siliguri, then the whole internet in Bhutan will be down. So that is a disadvantage, and the government has been holding talks with Indian government as well as Bangladesh government to get internet access from Bangladesh by avoiding the Siliguri corridor, bringing from Bangladesh directly to Samut-Jongkhar. So I think that talk is still going on, and hopefully it will be realized soon. But another hope that we have is a lot of companies outside, especially the one led by Elon Musk, they are trying to, use satellite to give internet access to landlocked places like Bhutan. So that is, I think, another hope that we have if we are able to get the satellite connection directly from satellite like that, low Earth orbit satellites. So that is another hope we have. But other than that, then we can only hope for the three countries, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and India, to expedite this talk and get another link for us through that. And talking about the digital economy in general, so what we need, I think, is really the clarity at the national level. Right now we talk about we want to do digital things, this and that, but to really make things happen is very difficult. For example, in the roadmap we propose things like digital by default. If we really go by that slogan, then we say that all the public services which can be taken online should be online and should be available 99.99%. And then if we are very clear about that, go about doing that strictly, then I think we can achieve it. But it seems that we are doing a lot of things in a half-hearted manner. So then I think we are neither there nor here. So I feel that we need to change that part of our habit.
But coming back to the earlier question about the gateway, internet gateway, in addition to the Siliguri, Bangladesh, and the satellite link you mentioned, as an IT expert, isn't there also a possibility that we should explore northward? When you look at the whole internet world today, there's a lot of rivalry going on between, say, Facebook and WhatsApp and WeChat, Weibo and Twitter. There is a strong internet system developing north of Bhutan. Is there any possibility that we should be considering this as well?
Technically speaking, it may be possible. But right now with the north, we don't even have any kind of transport infrastructure connected. So I don't know, that might take a lot of talks in terms of the geopolitical maneuvering and all that. Might take a lot of time, but technically I feel it should be possible because the internet connectivity must have come in the north until their border towns, and it may be a matter of connecting from there to Bhutan. Technically, it should be possible.
Yes, thank you. So let's now take questions from the audience.
How do you see the feasibility of e-litigation in Bhutan? What will be some of the challenges and opportunities in such type of litigation? Do you have any advice on this specific idea?
I think I will keep my answer short. I think e-litigation is being implemented and tried out already in Bhutan. So I don't know much about court procedure, and I think it's really progressive on the part of the judiciary to try that out, and I would really encourage that the judiciary, don't leave it out, but continue on that front, because it will really improve access to justice for the majority of the population.
To the new faces, I'm Sangratan, reporter of Bhutan Times. My question to the Dr. Cigay is, we know that, and sometimes talking of IT, we assume that we know not even less than even the United States, China, and Japan. But on the other hand, there is always a digital divide. Digital divide, haves and haves not. when somebody in Thimphu, they are able to watch TV on the screen, and in some remotest part or some backward family, they don't even have a black and white, or they are still watching with the old OLG and Philips television. You as ITian professionals, what recommendations do you give to the stakeholders or to the government in order to narrow this gap?
Thank you so much for your question, Sanjay. I think it's a very relevant question. So, we living in Thimphu often forget about our brothers and sisters living in the rural areas. So, digital divide and the digital gap, I think, is a real issue in many developing countries, and Bhutan is no exception. So, while making policies related to the digital, digital services, taking education online and all that, I think we have to really keep the underprivileged, section of the population in mind and see how to make it more inclusive. I don't have a very specific suggestion right now, but I think this we need to always keep in mind. And today the dialogue is with UN as well. I think agencies like UN always keep reminding us about such matters, about being inclusive. I think that's a very important point, and I think we need to keep that in mind, how to make it inclusive.
And in the roadmap that we have drafted, there is a proposal for triple A's, right?
Yes.
Accessibility, affordability, and what's the third A?
Availability.
Availability. So accessibility, availability, and affordability in terms of digital services.
Yes.
Another question from online.
While there are many advantages to technology, what are some of the major concerns you see as disadvantages for the youth?
Disadvantages, I think one is distraction. There is so much distraction from technology. There's like I mentioned, distraction, and then also technology is a tool, so you can learn good things, but also you can learn a lot of bad things. You may learn about bad things, and then you may try those bad things. So that is a huge disadvantage, I feel. And now talking of that, maybe I can also add about the advantages. Right now, my eldest son is in class 12. So he's taking science, and then he comes to me with his doubts. I studied class 12 science long time back, so class 12 science is quite deep, and I've forgotten some of the things. But then I know where to search, right? So when I search for a problem, search on the internet, there are very good explanations on YouTube and also on some websites. So this is actually a very huge advantage, And today, sometimes I tell my children that today you have an opportunity to do much, maybe even surpass your teachers, and it's definitely true. You can, you listen to the teachers also, but you also learn from online. You can do very well. In our times, if the teacher was not able to explain well, we were stuck. There was nowhere else to turn to. And these days, you can learn, any concept, and very well explained, you can learn from the internet. But having said that, still I restrict giving the phone to my son until his exam is over, because I know him well, and he will spend more time being distracted than looking up these good things. So normally, I give him and I let him search those things only when I'm with him. So I think there are these advantages and disadvantages.
I want to actually follow up on this. So you're a wonderful parent by controlling access for your son to telephones or to computers. But a lot of the parents, they don't actually know about it. They don't know the consequences of children abusing or overusing these digital tools. And I think there will be a lot of consequences of that on their psychology to begin with. People are much more restless today than they were in the past, I think. This is my take. If you look at social interactions, most of us, we are chatting with friends or relatives far away, but rarely talking with our parents or children around us. Similarly, the sort of IT tools, including phones that we have, are built, both the physical and the software and the programs and commercials are built with such enticing sort of appeal that people get addicted to them. So when you look at the negative side of digital technology, what kind of Bhutan do you actually see 10 years from now? I mean, even a DHI company like Bhutan Telecom advertises unlimited package after midnight. Now that's so unethical from my perspective. It's going to destroy the young people of Bhutan. So what kind of Bhutan are we going to have 10 years down the line if we use technology the same way we do now?
Yes, so in order to make sure that 10 years from now, the impact of technology, the negative impacts don't overtake the positive impacts, I think we have to take cautionary measures. So I feel that it is up to people like Dr. Karma, or even like me coming from technology, maybe suggest cautionary measures. And because our life is so much driven by technology, to have more dialogues around technology matters like this and make people more aware, I think this is very, very important. Otherwise, the negative sides are easier to adopt. The positive sides take more effort. So I think there are chances that the negative sides will outweigh. And I would like to mention here that I strongly feel that our country should block access to pornographic websites, pornography. Many countries have done it, but here, anybody can just type anything related to pornography and you have access to all the videos. This is a little bit not right. I feel that this, people are talking about maybe blocking PUBG, but I don't know about PUBG, I have not played. But more than PUBG, maybe I think we should talk about blocking pornographic website. And it's true that some people can, even if it's blocked, some people will know how to find a way out to access, but then only few will know. But just now, even the small, I think teenagers, young people, anybody can access it so easily. And for a GNH country, I think it's not so right. And maybe Dr. Karma, I would request you also to put in effort to bring about that change.
Well, thank you. I will do what I can. And one point I think it might be a good time to share is the screen addiction we have, which is going to lead to serious problems of eyesight. And I think Bhutan will probably have much greater need for ophthalmologists and optometrists than we have right now. The kind of impact this has on our eyes is tremendous.
Very right. And I have my nephews and nieces who are already using glasses, and it's because of that. And my children are a little more controlled, but some of my, my own nephew and nieces, they have full access to the phone anytime, anywhere kind of thing, and then they are already using glasses. So it's a very right concern. I think some level of, moderation, I think is necessary in every aspect of life.
Okay, one last question from the audience here. So,
my question is a bit about connectivity. So, in IT, in field of IT, connectivity is very important. Right? If that's not there, you cannot actually do most of your work. And in Bhutan, as much as I've also noticed myself, we have improved a lot in our ISPs in terms of infrastructure, also in terms of the service they provide. Comparing what we had in 2013 or 2014, now it is much better in terms of service, or even in terms of the the charges they charge to place it, and even individual user as well as a big company based. So, but still we are not as far as or as good as many other countries, like let's say even in India also, because we have used that, we have seen that, right? We have seen how the connectivity is there in some other countries, and we are still not as good as them. So, and I think I believe that is one field that we need to improve a lot if we want to reach where we want to. So maybe you can share a few things about why do you think it is like that? We are not as good as what are the places that we can improve in terms of connectivity, and what can the government or the ISPs that we have right now? We just have two major ISPs, right? They can do to improve the connectivity not just to the big users, but also for individual users, like someone who is using connectivity on their phone and their computer or whatever. Thank you.
Yeah, very good question, Jagat. So when we talk about IT in general, the most important thing is the internet. Internet is an amazing thing, I think. It has done to humanity like no other technology. So when it comes to internet, that fast connectivity, reliable connectivity is very, very important. I'm not working with ISPs, so I'm not very sure why they are not able to improve. But sometimes we can become complacent. If the users are not, asking them to improve, probably they will become complacent, right? And when I talk to the two major ISPs, I know the people there, and they have been telling me that their overall backbone bandwidth, we say backbone bandwidth, and when it comes to internet, you can always, the best analogy is water pipe. For example, it's like if you consider Bhutan like a big village, then the internet like a water pipe, the internet has to connect to the outside world, right? I told you it is coming from the Siliguri corridor via Tshering, and there is one line coming via Gelefu. So that is like a water pipe. And the ISPs, they were telling me like, in terms of the size of the pipe, you can always measure in terms of the bandwidth. And let us say that now bandwidth is measured in terms of gigabits per second. So they were saying something like the total capacity that they have taken is like 10 gigabits per second, just for instance. I'm not sure about the exact one. So if it is 10 gigabits per second, they were saying that most of the time only half of that capacity is used. That means that there is excess capacity, which means that water, if the water is filling up only half the pipe, that water should flow easily, right? Fast. And when more water is trying to come through the small pipe, then that is called the congestion, bottleneck. So on the backbone side, I think as far as what I've heard is that there is enough bandwidth in the backbone side. But I don't know now whether there is some congestion in the local network and things like that. So it could be many things, but things definitely need to be improved. And in that case, the only way to make them improve is for the users to raise their voice and tell them this is not enough. You have to ramp up.
But should there be more ISPs? Because at the moment it looks like there's a duopoly. If there are more competitors, if there are more players in the market, maybe the tariff will come down, the service will become better.
So the ISP market, I think, is open. But again, I think it's because of the small market size that the new business people or entrepreneurs are not going into this field of business. But I think if somebody feels there is a market and they can provide better services, I think they can do that. And having said that, there are two small ISPs located at the tech park also. Other than Tashisel and Bhutan Telecom, we have Nano and now another ISP called Supernet. They started their businesses in Thimphu.
Wonderful. Well, with that, I think we'll end the question from the audience. I have my final question, which is more philosophical. Now, people talk about digital singularity, that as we have artificial intelligence and Internet of Things, big data, blah, 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 will the computers take over human beings? What is your view on this?
It is very interesting, and it is even kind of hard to think, but things are changing so fast, so it's very, very hard to say. I'm not able to give a definite answer, but it's very hard to say how things will pan out, with the artificial intelligence and a lot of things happening in terms of, even on the biological side, like genetic engineering, and now people are talking about augmented human being. So all these things coming up, I find it really hard to say how things will pan out in the long run. But on the whole, I feel that technology is a tool, and if humans have more dialogue and if they think more about how to use this tool, serve our purpose, rather than humans serving the machines,
Yes.
then I think the future will be good.
You are so deeply embedded in this disruptive technological world. So you must be going through a lot of stress. I believe. What do you do to keep yourself on top of things, physically, mentally? I know you are into culture. You have written the biography of Lama Pema Wangchen. You have also done the book on Dasho Nishioka. Is there anything that others can also emulate to stay fit?
All right. So to some young people, I may sound old-fashioned. So, I'm spiritually active. I like going to temples, and also I like listening to the Buddhist teachings. And I respect all religions equally. So it doesn't matter whatever you follow. But I think spirituality, I think really can keep you rooted and keep you strong and make you able to face the world with more confidence and prevent you from getting into depression or mental illness and things like that. So I try to do yoga, some meditation, and many people here, they have attended this Search Inside Yourself training as well. Hopefully with that, they are also doing some meditation. So yoga, meditation, and visiting temples, that is what keeps me kind of grounded.
Wonderful. Now we're going to talk about the two books you chose.
Okay.
So what are the two titles? Can you tell us?
All right. So the first book I've chosen is called Augmented Life in the Smart Land. So I have kind of read this book here and there a little bit, but not through, because a friend of mine gave me an ebook copy of this, but I've not been able to read it totally. But the reason I chose this is most of the things that I talked about today actually is covered in the book. And somehow, the kind of thinking that I was having and the kind of things in the book seem to be similar. And I had my thinking even before reading the book, in fact, and somehow it coincides. But I've not read the book fully. But it kind of gives, how the technology has come about, and it talks more about the future. So some have called it the history of the future. So I think if you want to know about technology and how things are changing, this is a good book. And the second book I have chosen, I have not read it yet, but I have heard about this book many times, and I have read few reviews. So from third world to first, the Singapore story. The reason I have chosen this is now I'm increasingly thinking about what I told you before. I feel that this is the time for Bhutan to think about the next like big step for Bhutan. Till now we have been building the foundation. The foundation has been built. Now is the time to go to the next big step. And for that, maybe talking about how Singapore took this big step might be a very interesting read, and I'm interested to read this in the coming days.
So thank you very, very much for joining us. I normally end this session with the Bhutanese proverb, piece of wisdom from our own past. And today, as we are talking about the future and technology and innovation and creativity, I thought this is appropriate. Kep in Nguyen Sam, Pao in Chisam. A wise man thinks proactively. A brave man thinks reactively. So as people involved in technology, I think people have to be proactive, be wise and learn it. So with that, thank you, Doctor, for joining us, and thank you,
so
the
much.
audience, the virtual online audience. Have a good evening.